love living in a college apartment. It sounds like this all the time.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
What's your name?
My name is Rose.
And how old are you?
I am 22 years old.
Okay. I definitely thought you were older.
Really?
Like when I first saw your photos and stuff. So that's
a
really
lot of
cool
people
to know
read me
that.
as older too, because I've like always had a lot of older friends.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, so that's a compliment.
I definitely take it as one for sure.
Okay. So, Rose, who are you on a soul level?
On a soul level, I am first and foremost a Taurus.
Me too.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a Taurus sun, Sag moon, Virgo rising.
Okay.
A lot of earth.
Yes.
I was raised, it was me and my mom, my dad, and sister are all Virgos. So it's a house full of earth. I'm from Orlando originally. So I came up to Richmond for school. And I think on a soul level, I'm a pretty independent person for the most part.
That's good.
I have a lot of drive. I pretty much do what I want, when I want, and if I want something, I go after it. Yeah, I love cats, as you can tell.
Me too. Same. I'm gonna get you to draw.
Yay.
So I want you to just pick any colors that you feel you resonate with, any that are, you know, important to you or spark any memories, and just, I don't know, look pretty, whatever you want. And then just like tell everyone after you're done like why you pick the colors you pick. You can pick as many as you want.
Yeah. I like these three.
Okay. So is there any like significance, or you just like these colors?
Purple is my favorite color. It's always been my favorite color. I used to really read these series of books called the Click books. It was about like these like middle school rich private school girls that were like mean, and it was like a bunch of drama. But I used to love those books with my sister, and in that series there's one point where the girl gets a purple hair streak because it's like the color of royalty, and she's like, I'm the best. And so I've like always, ever since I read that, like purple has been my favorite color.
That's so funny.
And then I've always liked like a maroon red. I think before I dyed my hair blonde, it was the color that looked best with my dark hair and dark eyes. So I've always been like drawn to maroons and like deep reds. And then this color is really bright, and for some reason it reminds me of my sister because she's a redhead, and so she looks best in green. So those are the three I was drawn to.
Okay, sweet. So you can draw whatever you want, no pressure.
And no pressure.
You'll just show everyone at the end like what you draw. But while you're drawing, I'll just be asking you questions.
Cool.
So the first question, post the other questions. What makes you the most upset? Like what really pisses you off?
What really pisses me off? That's a good question.
If anything.
A lot of things piss me off. I've gotten a lot better at like controlling my anger, which the anger is a trait I get from my dad for sure. And the better at controlling it is something that I've worked on for a long time. But I would say probably just people who don't have any ambition, like people who just kind of like let life happen to them. Like just people that are passive and just aren't invested in like anything and don't have, you know, goals or drive. It kind of makes me mad because usually those people are from situations in which they can access, you know, like higher things than I can, either money-wise or just society-wise or something like that. So it's a lot of those people that just don't really, you know, they don't have to work as hard for things. So that kind of pisses me off. I'd say having my time wasted pisses me off for sure.
Yes. Oh my God.
Whether it's work or, you know, when I was back in school or social life, any aspect of it, my time is my most important part of my life because it's the one thing you can't get more of, no matter how hard you try. So people who waste my time really bug me for sure. And like respect is a really big thing. I think inherently like respect is given to everybody just by them being a human on the planet. I don't really believe in having to earn respect unless, you know, someone does something to take that away and then they have to earn it back. That's a different story, but I think inherently everybody deserves respect. So when people, you know, are just disrespectful to complete strangers, that really bugs me.
Yeah, same. What are you most afraid of?
I'm most afraid of disappointing people I care about. Specifically my mom and my sister, because they mean the world to me. And my mom has sacrificed a lot for me to be where I am, for my sister to be where she is. So that's really my motivation behind a lot of what I do, specifically in work and stuff, and why I grind so hard during the day, and you know, why I'm like, no, I'm confident I can get a 1-bedroom apartment and take care of it myself and also take care of 2 cats. And it's like that fear of letting my mom down, I think, especially because we were not we had our relationship struggles for sure. I was a total brat in high school to her, like just completely horrible. So
I feel like we were all in high school not the best daughters.
We don't appreciate our moms in high school, that's for sure. But yeah, I think letting my mom down for sure. And then I also have a really big fear, because it runs in my family, of alcoholism. So I don't really drink at all. Like I have a couple cans of like Angry Orchard rosé in my fridge that have been there for probably like 2 months. Like I went kind of crazy with that in high school, mostly because I was young and a lot of my friends were older, so they're like, let's like get her drunk, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I remember like being in high school just like drinking 9 shots and like not feeling anything.
Wow.
And then I got to college and that very quickly changed. Like whenever I would go to a party, I would take like 2-3 shots and I'd be drunk, and I was like, I don't like how I feel when I'm drunk, because I very much do like being in control of my actions, and alcohol is the one thing I've found where I kind of lose that. So that really frightens me, and just because addiction is so strong in my family, I'm always very conscious of that. So I would say that's another fear, is somehow down the line becoming an alcoholic for sure.
Yeah, totally fine. Do you have any vices?
Illegal vices, which might be shortly illegal, is a jewel.
Shortly illegal?
Shortly illegal? We don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll find out. That's what my girlfriend said. She's like, are you ever gonna quit juuling? I was like, if they make it illegal, like, yeah, I'll stop. But juuling for sure, which nicotine addiction I also get from my wonderful father. And then I would say weed for sure is a vice. It used to be a much bigger vice, specifically when I was in my last relationship, because it seems like all we did for 3 years was like sit at home and smoke weed. And I didn't really realize it at the time. At the time I was like, this is fine, I'm chilling. But specifically after the fact, I was like, ooh, I was just high for 3 years straight. Like, like every day, like it was bad. And obviously, like I still smoke, but I really only smoke like once a day, if that. Which might still seem like a lot for some people, but it's like an insane change for me. And I use it a lot as like because I'm on antidepressants as well, but it also definitely helps me like calm down.
Yeah.
Helps with my appetite. It helps with the headaches I get sometimes. So it's kind of a vice, but not as bad of a vice as it once was. And I don't really consider it a vice, but like my mom definitely does. Is me getting so many tattoos. I haven't counted in a while, but I have probably close to 30 now.
Wow.
And I'm only 22. But my first one I like gave myself in my bedroom at like 15, like a stick and poke.
What was it of?
It's it's the female symbol.
Okay.
So it had just come out, and so I was like, I'm gay. So that was like my first one at like 15, and then I got my first like real tattoo the spring break of my freshman year of college when I was visiting my best friend in Atlanta. She took me to get my first one, and I was hooked on that.
Yeah.
So I've always like never been happy with how my body looks, which I'm sure some people would be like, are you kidding? I'd kill to look like you. Because I've gotten that a lot. But I've always been like the skinny one, the like super pale one, super bony. Like I've never really liked how I looked. And tattoos definitely help me like love the skin I'm in. Like I just like feel so cool and like badass and like pretty with like all this art on my skin that I get to just walk around with. And I think it's also like inherently people are like, oh my god, she has a sleeve full of tattoos, like don't mess with her, she can like handle pain. which works out for me. But yeah, I'd say those three I think are vices. Four if you count coffee.
Oh yeah.
But who's not addicted to coffee?
Right? I mean, there are some weird people who don't like it or don't drink it.
Yeah, there's some people in my office that like never drink coffee. I'm like, how are you guys alive?
Right, like how are you awake right now?
I couldn't even like drive to work if I didn't have a cup of coffee every morning. Like that's crazy to me.
What is the most challenging thing you've gone through?
The most challenging thing I've gone through, and I've gone through quite a bit of challenging things, it was about 2 or 3 months into my freshman year of high school. I had like just barely turned 14. And long story short, my best friend at the time got me into this situation where she wanted to hook up with this one guy, and so I had to like talk to his friend because it was that, girl code, whatever.
Yeah.
And it ended up being in the situation where me and him were alone in a living room, and I did not know what sex was because I grew up very Catholic and no one really explained it to me. And so he took my virginity, and I did not know what was happening until it was over. And then I was like, oh, I guess I just had sex. And then, of course, pick up the phone, and my mom has called me 12 times, and I was like, hey, blah, 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 I'm at Pam's house. And she's like, oh, really? I'm at Pam's house, and you're not here. And I was like, and so that was like the most trouble I've ever gotten in my family, because I was like at some boy's house, and blah, blah, blah. And then the next day at school, everyone had found out because my friend like started telling people that I hooked up with this dude. And so it was like 2 months into high school, and people were like coming up to me in the hallways being like, so I heard you blah, 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 blah. And I was like, cool. And then I had to see him on campus every day for the next 2 years till he graduated. And even then I still hadn't really processed what had happened. I was just like, oh yeah, I had sex. And then it wasn't really until college, actually, which is one of the very good things that VCU did for me, was like sexual assault education and like those like webinars and stuff you're supposed to take like as a freshman when you're like coming into school. Is like, don't rape, like blah, blah, blah. Like that kind of thing. And that was the first time where I had seen rape and sexual assault portrayed as something other than just like screaming and fighting and saying
like pulling into an alley, like it can be like a
and it was more so the realization that like, oh, even though I didn't say no, like I did not want this, that's still assault. And so that was the first time it clicked, was like 3 or 4 years after it actually happened. So that trauma came rushing back, and I really didn't like even say like I was raped or I was assaulted until I was like a freshman in college, just because I didn't realize it. And ironically, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I woke up to a Facebook message request from this guy. This has now been 8 years.
Oh my God.
And he said something along the lines of like, "Hi Rose," rose emoji. I'm so sorry for how things went down, and like I would love to apologize and blah blah blah. Like I just skimmed it, I didn't even read it, and I just saw like the name. And
did he want to like meet in person, or was he just saying it online?
He was just saying it on Facebook. It was like, "Hey Rose, like I've been thinking a lot." It sent at like 2 a.m. and it was like, "I like apologize, blah blah blah. I wish things could have been different," like all this stuff. And I said, "Never contact me again." And he didn't. But it was like weirdly validating.
Yeah.
In that I was like, because I was kind of under the impression like he never even thought about it. He never thought he did anything wrong. He didn't care. Like nothing. Like he didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
But I got that and I was like, oh, well, that's kind of like a little bit of him owning up to his actions for sure. But
yeah.
It was weird. And then, like 2 weeks after that, I got an Instagram message request from that girl who like put me in that whole situation. That was like, "Oh, I'm sorry for what I did to you. Like, I think I was in love with you at the time, and like, I just wish like the same kind of thing. Like, wish things could have been different. Blah 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 blah. Also, you look way better than me blonde, and I'm mad about it." And I was like,
"Is all of this?"
It's like still sitting in my requests. I'm like, I can't touch that. I have nothing I want to say to that one. So I think that whole situation and experiencing all of that, and like it was my virginity at like 14 years old, like that definitely was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And all the repercussions since then, because like obviously it's been like 8 years and I still like I think about it on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's still affecting you.
Oh, absolutely.
Ugh.
Absolutely. And especially like that, the day I got the message when I woke up to get ready for work, I like texted my boss and I was like, "I'm gonna be an hour late," just because like I couldn't stop crying.
Yeah.
Like, I just had to like get myself together and I have to drive every day on the highway to get to work. So I was like, I can't come in right now.
Right.
Like, and thank God my boss is like awesome and understanding, and I didn't have to like explain anything to him. But it's definitely still a thing that affects me on the day to day. So I'd say that's probably the hardest thing. Amongst all the other hard things, that's the one.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
The next question is, what's one of the hardest conversations you've ever had to have, since I'm trying to figure out how our generation like communicates and what we can do to communicate better. But I mean, do you feel like your hardest conversation was kind of tied into that same situation, or is there another time in your life where you felt like there was an incredibly hard conversation that had to be
I think one ties into that and one is completely unrelated, but one was when I like had gone to college and realized that I was assaulted, was going back home like one Christmas and like telling my mom that I had been assaulted, because she knew what had happened, obviously, because she like picked me up from the guy's house and everything, but she just thought like we had sex and it was whatever, and I was like, you know, but I told her that no, it was sexual assault, and that was hard, just seeing my mom like break down, and it was not an easy conversation, but I was like, I need to tell you this is what really happened. And she was like, "Do you know where he lives now? Like, I want to go drive by his house." I was like, "No, Mom, you can't do that. I have no idea." So that one was hard. And then like about a month after I turned 21, I decided that I wanted to cut off my dad. Like cut off contact completely. Like he has always been around in my life. My parents were married and together up until a couple months before this conversation. I remember being in high school, going up to my mom and being like, "Leave him." divorce him. Like, you need to leave. I need to get out of this. We all need to get out of this. You need to leave. And she didn't. And like, even though our family was so close down in Florida, like, nobody outside of our immediate family knew. Like, she didn't tell her mom, she didn't tell her brother. So it was like a big secret that my dad was an alcoholic asshole.
Yeah.
And he, you know, never really took my mental health seriously. I was hospitalized in high school because I tried to kill myself after all this sexual assault stuff went down, and I remember he had to come to family therapy sessions while I was in there. And then afterwards we were driving home, and my mom stopped at a Dunkin' Donuts to like go in and get donuts, and he like turned around and looked at me and he said, "If you ever do that to my wife again, I'll lock you in there for good." And I was like 15 years old, and I was like, cool. So like, me and my dad have never had a good relationship whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he really tried to like 180 when my mom left him. I was junior in high school or junior in college. And so he started like reaching out to me a lot more. He started calling me like every week, which he had never done. He like up and drove up here from Florida one night just to like get dinner with me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I took some time to think about it, and I was like, this man has never done anything except hurt me, hurt my mother. She's done with him. I'm allowed to be done with him too. And so I was ignoring his calls for about a month. And then one night after classes, I finally called him, and he's like, "Hey, I thought you were mad at me." And he's like, "No." I was like, "No, I'm just kind of done." And he was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, like, we've never had a relationship. Like, just because you and mom are divorced now doesn't mean like 20 years are gonna disappear. You know, like, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want you to contact me anymore. We don't have a relationship. We're never going to. I don't want to talk to you." And he started blaming me, which is an alcoholism thing. And he was like, "Well, you're the one who never let us have a relationship, and, you know, thank you for ruining my day," and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And I haven't spoken to him since then. And he's tried to call me a couple times. He tried to call and left a message about how he wanted to come up for my graduation, and I never called him back. And then he tried to call me on my birthday this most recent year, so this past April, and I finally blocked his number on my phone because he called me during work, and it like shook me. So I blocked his number.
Do him and your sister have a relationship? Okay.
Yep, they have always had a relationship. She still visits him all the time when she goes home. Both my parents are still in Florida, but they don't live together.
Yeah.
She's actually going home for winter break, and she's buying his car off of him. Yeah, no, they still have a relationship. That's realistically the next time I would have to see him is next December for her graduation. But yeah, they still have a relationship. We just don't talk about him. Yeah. And I think that was a pretty hard conversation, just because it was so built up for so long, and it was something that I had wanted for so long.
Right.
And then finally, like, having the courage to just do it and be like, "Yeah, you are my father, but I don't want anything to do with you." Felt pretty big in the moment.
What is the craziest thing you've ever seen?
So, two things. One, I was a freshman in college walking down the sidewalk, and a car pulled over. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and they started catcalling me. It was like two young dudes, and I just ignored them and kept walking, and they took out a paintball gun and shot me in the head when I was walking, and then they drove away, and I like reported it to the police, and then like it had gotten around that they had shot like 6 other people with a paintball gun that night, like along the same stretch. So that was pretty crazy. And then another time, we have this lovely hazardous public transportation system in Richmond called the Pulse, which is 2 bus lanes in the middle of our main Broad Street.
I saw that when I came. I was like, this is so strange.
It's very dumb. It's very unsafe. Very, very recently, actually, a woman got hit by the pulse and died on campus. But my story is like a year ago, I was taking the pulse because they let everybody with like a student ID take it for free. So I was taking it from my apartment where I lived up to campus, and I was standing up because there were no seats, and this girl was crossing in front of the bus lane. The bus driver didn't see her, she didn't see the bus, but I saw them both acknowledge each other, and then we hit her. And she like crumbled down on the glass. And then she like fell to the ground, and I was like shaking. And then he was like trying to get people to stay, because thankfully there was a cop right there. So he was trying to get people to stay for witness statements and stuff. And I was like, oh no, I'm getting out of here. And so I got off the bus and saw she was like sitting up and talking and stuff. And then I walked to, whatever meeting or class or whatever I had. And I remember like walking in, and everyone was like, why do you look like that? And I was like, I just almost watched a girl die. Like, it was insane. It was insane. And then I never took the pulse again.
Yeah, because what?
And then like a year later, the same thing happened, but the girl died. And so it's like...
Okay,
Richmond is
get
like...
it together.
It's a mess. But it's both things I've seen walking around Richmond.
What do you need to heal?
I need a lot of time. Definitely time is my biggest thing, because time is really the only way that I get over things. And then I also need distractions for sure. So I'll like throw myself into a new hobby, or just like really, really focus on work, or get a tattoo, or do something to distract from, whatever I'm going through. Specifically, most recently was when I broke up with my girlfriend of 3 years, who I lived with at the time, in my old apartment. And long story short, we got in a really dumb fight, and she pushed me into a wall, and I hit the ground, and I said, no, that's it. And so I broke up with her like 2 days later, and I told her to move out. But it was like a couple weeks of like her moving out and her still being around, and like me having to feed her cat and like all that stuff. So that's when I really started getting really into like Instagram stuff. Like I would just keep myself so busy that I was out of the house. I would book like 4 or 5 shoots a week, like all day on Saturdays, all day on Sundays, just to not be around and not like happen to see her. So distractions for sure help, and time too.
Okay. Yeah. What's missing?
I think like my sense of greater purpose, if that makes sense, which I think is also just kind of like pretty normal for being like, like 23 to 25, like just out of school, like not really knowing what's happening.
For sure.
So I know I'm like definitely not alone in that feeling. And it's just kind of like, I really hate like not knowing what's happening. I hate like indecision and not having a plan, and I'm very much like type A. And so
for sure,
it's hard for me to, not realistically know what my life is going to look like a year from now. So I think that like greater purpose kind of feeling is what's the main thing of what's missing right now. And I'm pretty much, honestly, for the first time in my life, I'm pretty much satisfied in like every aspect, like family, personal, love life, work, like hobbies and outlets, like my house, like everything is great. And I'm definitely like the happiest I've ever been, but it's still that kind of like, I'm just kind of winging it. Like, I don't really know. It's working out for now, I can pay my rent, I can do things I want to do, but I would say probably that like greater purpose is where I'm kind of feeling it right now.
Okay. And last question, all of the power goes out, but the screens on computers, telephones, TVs, they stay on. So it says like PSA, public service announcement, and then it's your face, and the whole world can see you. Like, what are you gonna say to the world?
can I pass it to somebody else?
I guess, but like it doesn't have to.
I was like, that's probably pretty
Is there a specific
telling.
person you would pass it to, or would you just be
No,
like,
I'd just
you
be
take
like,
the
I
attention?
don't want to. No one look at me. No one. I don't want to lead. I don't want to.
I don't want to leave.
Like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, as a kid, I didn't speak in school unless it was like to answer a question from the teacher for like 10 years. So I like really hate like knowing that everybody's eyes are on me.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd be like, can I pass?
Do you have anything that you would want to say to the world if you had the opportunity, like to get a message out, even if it was anonymous? Like, what would you tell the world? So you wouldn't necessarily feel like
okay. Yeah, that makes me feel better. I think I would definitely say just like be kind to people. Like everyone's already going through so much shit, and like everyone's going through personal shit and societal shit, and just everyone always has stuff going on, and it's just like have a little bit of like compassion for other people. Like it's not hard to just be nice and, you know, like wish the best for everybody, and like you don't have to go out of your way to do anything, but just like keep in mind like everyone's a person at the end of the day, and like it's important to treat other people how you would want to be treated ultimately.
For sure. Thank you so much for doing this. This was so beautiful.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Show everybody what you drew.
Oh, it was gonna be a sun, a sunset, like on the water, and so that's what I started with, and then I was like, wait, I kind of want to do some weird color patterns.
Yeah, I like it. Can you sign it?
Oh yeah, I'll sign it.